Hello again, and welcome to Highfinity. Today, we're going to take a web application and show you how you can set up a one-click mechanism to publish your application to a custom hosted domain. WebMaker uses a low-code approach, and you can deploy applications you create to any suitable hosting environment, whether it be within your enterprise or on a hosted cloud platform. In our project today, we will use a WebMaker Server available at DigitalOcean's marketplace and show you how you can create and link to your server, enabling you to publish your applications using a single click from the integrated WebMaker Design Studio. Our WebMaker technology uses a low-code approach to help you build enterprise-scale web applications quickly. The resulting applications are flexible, and you can customize them to suit your exact requirements. I'm Abdul, and I'm joined by Gerard again today, who will take you through a step-by-step guide on how to package and deploy your web applications quickly. Over to you, Gerard.
Okay, well, hi there. Thank you, Abdul, for the intro. As Abdul just mentioned, we're going to be looking at the whole development lifecycle of a WebMaker application in this video. So we're going to take it from creating a project, testing it runs, does what we like, and then publishing it on a live system. So to get started, really, we need to look at opening up the studio and creating our project. So in terms of the WebMaker Studio, we provide you a couple of different options of how you want to use that. You can choose to download and install it locally in your own environment, or you can run it online using our hosted studio, which is what we're going to do in this video. So first thing is get started, sign into the website, and we've got the WebMaker Studio link right at the top here. That gets us straight into a WebMaker environment for us to create our projects and build and publish. So for this video, we're going to use the contacts system template that we provide. Now, this gives an example of a complete transactional application using the full WebMaker stack. So it manages a list of contacts and gets the information based on some web service calls to some remote services that we host. So here's a create a project. Click on that. We can give it a name. And a workspace is kind of like a grouping for our projects. So once that goes away, gets everything set up for us. Okay, so this is the page design screen, and we can see this is for our contact search page. So in this application, we have 3 pages. We can do a search for contacts. We can see we're getting a list of results, and then we can also see the details for a contact. We're not going to go into the details of how you construct the pages, how you put all your controls on or whatever in this video, because we're more concentrating on the life cycle of getting it tested and published. But as a quick summary, we've got our WYSIWYG view of the page in the middle here. We can see our controls. In this case, we've got a text box. We can select stuff. We've got properties on the right-hand side, and a whole palette we can see on the left here if we wanted to add or change what's on our page. So there's a whole load of features that we can use to build all sorts of pages, from simple static content to more complex transactional pages. So in terms of the options we use when we're developing and testing and verifying our applications, we get a good idea of what our page is going to look like using this view here, but we also have options to preview the page in full, whereas then we can like type into text boxes rather than that selecting and showing us our properties. So for example, our contact details page here, we could preview it and we can see the full page, and we can see what's happening in terms of validation, features, etc. And we can always switch back and we can bring up the page design for that page as well, and compare and contrast the two views. So when we're happy, we think our pages are looking right, the previewing okay, the next step really would be to do a local test, which we have a play button up here straight on the toolbar that lets us do that. Now what this does is it packages up the project and deploys it into a test environment that comes with the WebMaker Studio. So when we click through and run it, we get our sort of launching page here. We can adjust this and use this in our test environment if we want to pass some kind of startup params to our application or whatever. We may need that. But for this one, we can just click through start a form, and we can see this is our same search page, so it matches what we saw in our page design. But in this case, we're in our run test, so this is a live system, and we can test it out. So if I type something in here, or put a letter in this case, we can do a search and get back matching records. So this is matching its surname, so this has got T in it, so it comes back. Actually, let me see all of them. And then we can come back with our data. So as I think I said earlier, this project is using some web services that we host that provides the data. So it's making recalls, say, search for this, or when I can click through on one of these, says get me the details for this contact. Then we can go through and we can change some information. We can see actually some fields here are mandatory. So if I try and update this, it'll say, hey, I need to fill this in. So I can put some data in, save those. It's coming back. Yeah. So we can see it looks like it's working pretty well. So if we switch back to our design environment, one area that's useful to help us visualize when we're dealing with these complete applications where we've got navigation between pages, we've got some server-side processing in terms of searching. Here we get, in this case, updating contacts, is we can bring up what we call our application map diagram, which gives us a view of that flow across the application. So you can see right in the middle here, the contact search page is highlighted because that's the one that we're actually designing in this window. And we can see the flow from here, search contacts. This is our search results page. Different icon here because that is what we call a partial page because it's embedded into the main page. So we saw that when we're doing our testing here, that's just updating in place rather than sending us to a complete new page. So that's why we can see that clearly with the different icon. And then from here, you can see we can view contact, get the information. So these round icons here are our server-side processing. And then we end up with another full page here, which is showing our contact details. And we can see a few different options here, cancel, insert, update, different actions we can perform from that page. So as I say, we're not going to go into detail on how these pages are created, how this server processing is constructed, but I think it's useful to give an overview of what this application does, briefly how it's structured. And what we can also see here is these controllers are using the XML rules engine, so that we're using the full WebMaker platform for this project. The other options we can have is we can have Java implementation controllers instead, in which case you're free then to use your Java code of your choice to implement that functionality. So at this point, we can say, hey, we've got our project, it's looking right, we're happy with how it's running, it seems to be doing what we want. So we're happy and we want to get it live and we want to get it onto our production system. So in the WebMaker world, we talk about publication as the way of getting out from the studio our project in a way that we can run it on whatever our target environment is. So as I think Abdul mentioned at the start, you can deploy these applications on a whole range of environments. But in this video, we're going to look at the DigitalOcean droplet that we've got as a new option that is actually quick and easy to get going. So I'm just going to do a search of the documentation. You see we've got a page here that tells you the steps that we have to do. So the main thing we're going to do is click through onto the DigitalOcean marketplace and we can see there's a WebMaker Server application that's available there. So this has everything that we sort of pre-configured for you, so it's a good target to host WebMaker applications. Once we've got to this page, we can easily click the big blue button here to create a droplet from it. So if you don't yet have a DigitalOcean account, you can sign up for one, or you can sign in here. So when you click that, you've signed in, you start to create the droplet. You then have to pick which type of machine or whatever you want to use. Generally, you can for WebMaker, you can start with the cheapest option here, and depending on your usage, you can then scale up to whatever requirements you may have for your application. So for now, we're just going to go through and use the cheapest option to get started. You then configure the keys or whatever you're going to use to log on to that. And then at this point, you can create, and in a couple of seconds, the droplet will be available, and DigitalOcean will come back and tell you the IP address you've got for that droplet. So then, depending on whether you already have a domain name that you're going to use, you may want to set your DNS records, add your A records, or whatever you need to make sure that your domain is pointing to the new droplet that you've got created. If you don't yet have a domain that you can use, you can carry on using the IP address. What becomes tricky is setting up SSL to give you secure connections is a lot trickier without the domain. So in this case, the droplet that we just created, we have mapped to this demo.-t.com subdomain. So what you'll find is once you've set it up, if you've mapped the DNS or you're just using your IP address, when you access the droplet via your web server, you should get this page here to tell you, hey, we're up and running, everything's looking good. Okay, so once we know that we can access our droplet, there are three main things that you probably want to configure before we publish our application to it. The first thing we're probably going to want to do is set up some kind of SSL certificate. So we've got a secure connection. We need to add our WebMaker license information to the droplet. And then we need to retrieve information on the username passwords that we can use to be able to publish our applications to it. So to do these things, you will generally need to log on to the droplet using an SSH secure shell to access that Linux environment. So if you're using Windows, then you can use the PuTTY tool to do that. Other OSs, I think you'll find the commands are built in. So if you are using PuTTY, so you will put your IP address or host name in here. And the main thing you'd need to make sure is if you're using a SSH key for the authentication, you need to set your key file that you'll have created during the setup of your droplet on the DigitalOcean environment. Okay, so once we're logged in, you'll see this welcome message, which gives you an overview of the steps required, which is those couple of things that I mentioned a minute or two ago. So once you are logged in, or if you need help with logging in, there are lots of guidance on the DigitalOcean website. We link to some useful pages from our documentation, for example. This page helps you with logging in and setting up a new user. So you may, if you're going to be using this lots, you want to set up a user that's not root for your normal access and for security reasons. Three main things we want to do: enable the SSL, so we've got secure connections, put in our licensing information, and retrieve our credentials. So once we've connected, we get the welcome message, as you can see here, which gives us details of the steps, or summary of the steps that we've talked about needing to set up. So the first thing we're going to do is try and configure an SSL certificate using the free Let's Encrypt service. So to do that, we can use the certbot tool. So we can run that, and you may find, as we've got here, is it's given us a warning about Apache not being configured. So if you do get that, then you can run this install and you can get the information from the documentation to enable that for you. So now we can run our command again, and what it will go through using the standard Let's Encrypt process, it will ask us for some details of for the certificate that we're trying to create. Now you can look on the Let's Encrypt documentation, you can look on the DigitalOcean documentation and find out more details about how this works and how you would configure it. And as you can see, we've got some links through here of how to go through it and set that up. So make sure you type in the domain name that you want the certificate for, which is the domain name that your droplet is pointed to. And then it will go through and make sure that it can configure everything correctly. So here you can choose whether you want to force all traffic to be HTTPS or not. So we will say yes, we want everything to be a secure connection. What I can do now is if I go back here and I refresh my page, you can see now we're secure and I'm not getting the warning in the browser anymore. So that's that done, and I've got a secure connection through HTTPS to our droplet. So first step ticked off. So the second thing, as we said, is putting in our WebMaker license file. As I think I mentioned earlier, this contacts app that we're using here is uses the full WebMaker platform stack, because we've got XML rules-based controllers, we've got pages, we've got web service calls, so all of that functionality together. So in order to use that, you will need a WebMaker Studio Pro Edition license, because we're doing transactional applications, we're not just doing static pages. And you will also need a rule server license. If instead you are building an application using Java controllers, then for the server component to publish that, you will only need a Java Gateway license, which, as you can see, is currently free. Or if you were just building static pages, then you wouldn't need a server license at all. You would be able to just use one of the Studio license, either the Lite Edition or the Pro Edition. So once you have your license key, you need to store it on the server so that it can access that information. And as we can see here, we have a file that already exists that we just need to put our license string into. So if we have a look at that file, as you can see here, we've got just some helper text in that says we need our license key in there. Now, we can copy and paste it like I'm going to do here, or you could upload your license file if you already have it using FTP or whatever. We'll discuss some of those other options in other videos. For now, I'm just going to paste in a license key. Now, the license keys will be a whole series of funny characters. You will be able to see your license keys from your order history page on the website. So from here, if you go to my FNT, we've got a list. You'll see your order, and from there, under each order, it will show all the license keys that apply. So you can easily just copy and paste that string and paste it into your server. So put that in there, and we can see the end of the string. Okay, so 2 steps done now of the setup that we talked about. So the third one is to just access our credentials. So in order to publish it, we don't want anyone to be able to publish to this server, so we need the correct username password combination to be able to publish our applications to this server. Now, when we created the droplet, it's generated a unique password just for us. So now we need to find out what that password is, and then we can use it in our studio to configure the publication. So again, if we switch back to the documentation, we've got the command here to tell us which file we need to be looking at. So we can see at the bottom of this file that we actually have two different users set up. So we have our WM publish user and we have our WM admin user. Now, the publish user is the one that has permission to actually publish applications to this server, and the admin user can be used for administering it via the web application. So looking at what applications are installed using the Tomcat Manager processes, as well as using the WebMaker dashboard process to see how the WebMaker applications are performing. So for now, what we're interested in is the publication user, because that's what we want to do. We want to get our applications from our studio to this live server. So generally, you won't need to change the usernames here, and you'll either need to take a copy of your passwords or adjust them for your usage. Okay, so now we have all our information. We're ready to go back to our studio and to publish our application. So if we switch back to the studio now, we can see we have a publish menu at the top on our toolbar. So we have the full publication that we're going to be using, or we can alternatively just export our pages if we just want to get HTML scripts or whatever. In this case, as we're dealing with a full application, we're going to use a complete publication, and that's going to automate the whole process for us from one click in the studio to get it into our live environment. So if we go into our publication settings screen, it's telling us that we don't have any publication targets configured, which is fine. So we're going to set up a new one. Now, as you said, there's various ways of getting the information out, various different types of publication targets, but we're going to use the DigitalOcean droplet because it's the easiest one, and that's what we're talking through in this video. So it's already defaulted that for us. It's given it a name. We can change this to be whatever we want. So maybe in this case, it's the -t demo server. And we can see here there's a few different parameters that we need to fill in. So the main one being the URL of our droplets. So if, like we've done, you've found this domain name, you've configured your SSL certificates, then we can just type that in like that. If you're still using the IP addresses, then obviously you would just type your IP address in there instead. As we said, the username WM publish, we saw that in the file we were just looking at. Put in my password that we've retrieved. And the final option that's defaulted for us is the context path. This is what we want the application to be called when it's published. So if we leave that as the default, which is it's generated from our project name, it means we'll be able to access this application once it's published, and the URL will be demo.hyphen.com/contacts. So there are a whole load of other settings we can configure for this publication target, but for now, we can leave all the defaults of that, and we just need to configure those couple of properties. So we can see we've got that publication target now set up. It's marked as the default, so if I use my publish option from the menu, that's the one it's going to do. Or always I can come into this settings, might have a whole list of publication targets, and I can click on whichever one I want to do. So we're all ready, and the thing now is we just want to get our application up there. So we can hit the publish. It will take a couple of seconds to package up that application, push it over onto that server. Okay, so it tells us that was successful. So if we switch, this is our droplet. We've said we want to put it contacts. So we can hit that URL. And here we go. We can see we've got our application up. It's running on a live server, running on that droplet. And we're all done. Okay, so we can see there it's all running. All looks great. And as we said before, there are other options for publication. This DigitalOcean droplet approach is quick and easy to get going. But if you are not using DigitalOcean, you want to use a different provider, or you already have a server that you want to be publishing to, we can use different options for our publication targets. If you're running on a Tomcat environment, you can enable the manager application on that environment and publish to it directly, whether it's DigitalOcean or anywhere else. That might be an option for you. If you are using a different server, or you don't want to enable the manager application for automatic publication, we can generate a WAR file, which is just a standard Java web application archive. So that file will then be able to be deployed to any compatible Java environment, whether that's Tomcat or whatever server you want to use. Okay, so we've got our application up there. It looks all right. It's all running. But then we realize, oh, actually, there's a slight change I want to make. I want to tweak something. We can go back to our studio. We can make some changes and test it locally again. And if we need to, we can republish. And if we wanted, we may have multiple environments, publication targets configured. We may have, this is our test server, and this is a Q&A server, and then finally we maybe have our live server. So we can publish to different environments, check we're happy, and then push it to our final live server right at the end. So for example, this is our contact details page. We can see the details here. We can use some of the options in the studio, switch into, say, grid mode here, and see we've got a grid in our page. We've got a grid in our skin, our kind of wrapper around our information. We'd say, actually, well, we wanted to add a row at the top here, and we wanted to put some extra help text in. So we can see as we go there, we can add a new row. We've got some empty cells. We can put some, maybe we wanted to put a heading in there, and maybe we wanted some something more useful. But just to illustrate the process, you can easily go through. We can use all the full capabilities of the WebMaker Studio to adjust our pages and make changes and get them working exactly as we need to. Okay, so we made some changes. We can use the local test option again, run it in our studio environment, check things are looking okay before we publish to our live environment. So if we just click through here, we made a change on the details screen. Yeah, okay, we can see our messages are coming up. Sometimes you may find the browser might cache some files. So if things don't seem to appear quite how you would expect, it might be the browser caching, and you can clear some of that out to resolve some issues. Okay, but in this case that all looks good. So we want to publish and we want to push it up again. As I said earlier, because that first publication target that we've set up becomes our default, I can just use the publish option straight away in the menu there. You see, we're seeing our sort of start page there. We've got our search again. I can click through, and yeah, we can see that new information is appearing. So one thing, if you did want the your application. So here we've got it at /contacts. If you wanted to go straight into that URL without them having to type the contacts, or if you wanted to go straight into the start form URL, would be possibly the one to do for this application. So we get straight into this screen. Then you can easily configure those redirects using Apache configuration or Tomcat configuration, whatever, depending on what approach you're familiar with. There's lots of online guidance on how you can do that. There's some information in our documentation as well to help with that.
Cool. Thanks again, Gerard, as always. Well, we hope you enjoyed the video, and hopefully you'll give WebMaker a try. If you have any questions, then please engage with us. You can connect with us via the usual social channels. You can also email us at support@hyphenity.com or engage with us on our forum. Thank you for watching, and see you again soon. Take care.